For nearly 3,000 years, people have been fascinated by one story. A warrior, a lost kingdom, a journey across a dangerous world filled with monsters, gods, and impossible challenges. But despite countless adaptations, there is one problem. Most people completely misunderstand what the Odyssey actually is. They think it's a story about adventure, about fighting monsters, about a hero defeating everything standing in his way. But the truth is much darker. The Odyssey is not really about winning. It's about what happens to a person after the war is over. It's about trauma, loss, temptation, and the desperate search for a home that may no longer exist. And that's why Christopher Nolan's upcoming adaptation has the chance to do something Hollywood has struggled with for decades. Finally, tell the real story of Odysseus. When most people hear the name Odysseus, they immediately picture the famous moments: the Trojan War, the Trojan horse, the Cyclops, the sirens, a hero sailing across the ocean facing impossible enemies. And yes, those moments are part of the story, but they aren't what makes the Odyssey legendary. Because unlike many ancient heroes, Odysseus doesn't start his story as someone trying to become great. He's already great. He's already famous. He's already considered one of the smartest warriors in Greece. He helped win the Trojan War. He achieved the thing every warrior dreams of: glory. But when the war ends, Odysseus discovers something important. Winning does not mean everything goes back to normal. The journey home takes 10 years. 10 years of storms. 10 years of losing his crew. 10 years of being separated from his wife, his son, and the life he spent years fighting to protect. And that changes him. The Odyssey isn't about a man trying to become a hero. It's about a hero trying to remember who he is. This is what makes Odysseus so interesting. He isn't Superman. He isn't Captain America. He isn't a flawless symbol of morality. Odysseus is brilliant, but he is also arrogant. He is loyal, but he is also selfish. He survives because he can outthink everyone around him. But sometimes, his intelligence creates the very problems he has to escape. The most famous example is the Cyclops. After arriving on the island of Polyphemus, Odysseus and his men become trapped inside the Cyclops cave. Using his intelligence, Odysseus creates a plan. He tells the Cyclops his name is Nobody. He blinds the monster. Then he escapes by hiding beneath sheep leaving the cave. It's one of the greatest examples of cleverness in mythology. But Odysseus makes one mistake. As he sails away, he cannot resist telling the Cyclops his real name. And that decision comes back to haunt him. Because Polyphemus is the son of Poseidon. Now the god of the sea has a personal reason to make sure Odysseus never reaches home. His greatest strength becomes his greatest weakness. His pride. And that is the entire point of the character. Odysseus isn't interesting because he always makes the right choice. He's interesting because he doesn't. One of the reasons the Odyssey has survived for thousands of years is because the monsters aren't just monsters. Every challenge represents a different human weakness. The Lotus Eaters represent the temptation to give up. After years of fighting and suffering, Odysseus's men discover a place where they can forget everything. No pain, no responsibility, no need to continue the journey. And that's the danger. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't surviving. It's finding the motivation to keep going. Then there are the sirens, creatures who promise knowledge and pleasure, but lead sailors to their deaths. They represent temptation, the desire to abandon reality for something easier. Then there is Scylla and Charybdis, a choice where there is no perfect answer, no victory, only deciding which disaster you can survive. And that's what separates the Odyssey from a simple fantasy adventure. The biggest battles are not fought with swords. They're fought inside the mind. This is exactly why Christopher Nolan could be the perfect filmmaker for this story. Because Nolan has always been fascinated by damaged people facing impossible choices. Batman is a man destroyed by trauma who turns pain into purpose. Cobb from Inception is a man trapped by guilt. Cooper from Interstellar sacrifices everything for something larger than himself. Oppenheimer is a brilliant man forced to live with the consequences of his own creation. Nolan's protagonists are rarely simple heroes. They're people carrying impossible burdens. And that's what Odysseus is. A man who won a war, but lost pieces of himself along the way. A man who defeats monsters, but cannot defeat time. Because when Odysseus finally returns home, he isn't returning as the same person who left. The war changed him. The journey changed him. And the question isn't just whether he can get home. It's whether there is still a home waiting for him. For thousands of years, people have remembered the Odyssey because everyone understands what Odysseus represents. Everyone has their own journey. Everyone faces storms they didn't expect. Everyone loses pieces of themselves along the way. The monsters may be different. The oceans may be different, but the struggle remains the same. Trying to find your way back to who you were. That is why the Odyssey has survived for nearly 3,000 years. Not because of the Cyclops, not because of the gods, not because of the battles, but because underneath all of the mythology, it's a story about being lost and desperately trying to find your way home.